Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Nikki Parr. I am the Associate Director for Strategic Initiatives at WEVE, at Women's Economic Ventures. Here in Santa Barbara, we're based in Santa Barbara and Ventura counties. We are a nonprofit that supports women entrepreneurs, professional women, anyone that's just looking to make a change in the world and rock their thing. So good morning. This is our first WEVWorks webinar of 2021. Really excited to see everybody here. Please feel free to switch on your video if you feel comfortable. It's lovely to see faces and kind of get that sense of community that I know we're all craving right now in our Zoom land. We are going to be recording the webinar. I will send it out to everybody that is registered, and it'll also go up on our website at a later date. And this is a very interactive and participative space. Please put your comments in the chat box and questions, and yeah, just enjoy and participate. I do want to say a few words about events that we have coming up in the next month, events and trainings. On our webpage now, we have a special page on our website that tells you all about the upcoming events. A few that I do want to call out specifically. Strong Women, Strong Coffee. We are going to start a monthly meetup. Obviously, this will be online to start with, but the idea is that once we're back in the world, that we will have these in person as well. This is something that we've heard clients asking for repeatedly. They just want more community. They want to meet more business owners like themselves or more women like themselves. And so we're trying to meet that need. So our first Strong Women, Strong Coffee meetup will be Friday the 22nd of January at 9 a.m. The format will be a 15-minute chat with one of our clients or with a speaker. This time it'll be Tammy Mayorga, who's one of our clients, talking about goal setting as a business owner. And then we'll have the opportunity to go into breakout rooms and just meet other business owners and meet other women. So it's a great opportunity to start to get to know your fellow entrepreneurs in the community. And then coming up on the 27th of January in the evening, we have what's called the Spirit of Entrepreneurship Awards, which are affiliated with WEVE. And the kickoff event for this sort of award season, I guess, is going to be a rock your profile presentation, rock your LinkedIn profile presentation. And so that's a great opportunity to learn really how to make the most of your online presence, particularly with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is used widely by entrepreneurs. It's not just for people in the corporate world. It's another great way to get your presence online. Actually, Jay has a fabulous presence online on LinkedIn. She posts blogs regularly, or not blogs, but posts comments and articles, and I certainly follow her and get lots of good tips there. But if you have no idea about your LinkedIn profile and you really want to hear from the expert, we actually have Lauren Jolder, who works for LinkedIn, who will be teaching that class. And Lauren, I think, also has the Rock Your Profile video in LinkedIn Learning as well. So she really is the person to hear from on this subject. So that's Wednesday, the 27th of January. Oh, I forgot to mention on Strong Women, Strong Coffee, we have a Spanish version of that also, Café con Éxito, and that will be January the 29th. So if you have friends, colleagues, associates that are monolingual Spanish or bilingual and just want to practice speaking Spanish with colleagues, then please feel free to join that also. And then finally, the business trainings that we have coming up. On Monday, actually, we're starting a 6-week introduction to QuickBooks online QuickBooks and online class. That's in the evening. I think there are still places available. So if you're interested in learning more, go to our website. We have How to Write Your Business Plan using Live Plan. That's a class that starts in February. And then finally, Exploring Entrepreneurship starts in March. That's for those of you who may have a business idea, but want to understand if it really has the potential to turn into a business that will be successful. So it's a 4-week program that really sort of takes you through just asking some questions of the business idea and of yourself. Are you ready to become an entrepreneur? So that is what we have coming up. I just saw something going into the chat. Very interested in the LinkedIn webinar. How can I sign up? If you go to our events page, weaveonline.org, and then go to the upcoming events, there's a link there. There's a link for all of these to register online. So Jay, I'm going to introduce Jay. Jay Fields is our presenter this morning. We're going to be, or she's going to be speaking about really following through with intentions. You know, we try and will our minds to change our lives a lot of the times, and we need to be able to draw on other resources within ourselves to follow through. And Jay is going to be talking about some of the neurobiology, embodiment influences, and ways that we can just increase our capacity other than by pure will, which may not always work. And certainly for me, it doesn't. I know that I need to draw on somatic and embodiment practices too. So it's going to be interactive and experiential, and you'll learn some really good techniques and tips to help you not just with following through with intentions, but really, I think, resourcing in the world that we live in right now, which is certainly demanding a lot of us, and we need to stay in a good place of equilibrium and follow through for our own success. Jay is an educator, coach, and author. She's taught the principles of embodiment and self-regulation for over 20 years. Her approach to helping people have their own back at work and life is grounded, playful, empathic, and intelligent. Jay received her BA in Psychosocial Health and Human Movement from the College of William and Mary, and her master's is in Integral Transformative Education. She's the author of the book, Teaching People, Not Poses. She is a registered yoga instructor as well, and is also the host and presenter of the LinkedIn learning course, Managing Your Emotions at Work. And I will confess that's where I first came across Jay and was kind of blown away by that presentation and the clarity of it, and how much sense it made. And I thought, who is that lady? And then found out that she's local. So immediately jumped on that situation, and I'm really, really grateful that she's here with us. And we're so lucky at Weave to be able to have these incredible speakers and incredible presenters accessible to us and want to work with us and our clients. So finally, Jay is one of the top 50 bloggers making a difference in the world as well. So you are in great hands, and I'm delighted to introduce Jay Fields.
Thank you, Nikki. Thanks for the introduction. And thank you too for the conversations we've had in preparation for this. I love when you reached out that you were like, yes, and you're a fellow somatics person. And Nikki and I had some fun conversations about embodiment and somatics on the way to this day. So thank you for that. And thank you to the ladies that are here live, and to those of you who are listening on the recording. And thank you too to Weave. I just think Weave is such an awesome, awesome organization, and being able to be here and learn together with other women entrepreneurs is such an awesome opportunity. And so I'm excited about that. As Nikki mentioned, I have been an entrepreneur my entire adult life, so the last 20 years. And I've been, as she said, teaching the principles and practices behind resilience and social and emotional intelligence. And I've worked with individuals in my coaching practice, and also organizations from many, many different sectors now, and lots of places in the world. And I can say from personal experience that being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. It's not for sissies. And it's, I think it's one of the most confronting and rewarding things that you can do, is to be your own boss and run your own business. And with that, I learned, kind of like what Nikki was saying, that doesn't necessarily matter how smart I am or how much my mind wants me to get someplace. In my business, I've found that I really have to call upon my whole self and bring that along. And so that's what I'm going to share with you a little bit more about today, is this idea of how just moving from your mind and your mental space is flimsy at times, no matter how brilliant you are. And that if we can pull along with us our understanding of neurobiology a little bit, and our embodiment and our relationship to ourselves as a person in a body, then we have more capacity to get where we're headed. So with that, let me do just a couple of check-ins with you all. I know I can't see everyone, so I'm just going to get partial answers here, but show of thumbs, thumbs up being I'm currently working with an intention or goal or resolution for myself for the new year. Thumbs down is no, I'm not. Thumbs in the middle is kind of. Where are we at? Do you have an intention, a goal, resolution? Looks like we're in the right place then. Most people, yeah. So if you're in this range, totally fine. And what I would say for today, we're going to be doing activities that require having some sort of intention or resolution. So what I would say is go based on, and I know this might sound like a cop-out answer, but like, if you did know, what would you say it is? Which is to say, don't overthink it. You can always change it another day, but for today, have something that resonates enough with you that you can work with. Okay, so we've got a lot of thumbs up, and then I would love it if you would just briefly introduce in the chat box what your business is, what you're up to, and if you want to say how long you've been at it. You know, are you 3 months in? Are you 10 years in? Just so I kind of have a sense of what we're up to out there. Ah, Tinkle Bell Diaper Service. I love the name. Skincare line. Got it. Life coaching, Reiki, and hypnotherapy. A barber, right? Social services. Websites. Women in STEM. Awesome. Pianist and piano teacher. Social media sites. This is awesome. I hope you get an opportunity. There's some of them are going by quite fast to kind of scroll back up and see who else is on here. I'm like wanting to have conversations with people now. Working with used to be resilience, social emotional intelligence, leadership, and mindfulness. Awesome. Retreats, forest bathing. Yes, please. Okay, that gives me a sense of who's here, and it looks like many of you have been at this for quite some time. So that's kind of cool. Couple of newbies. So where I'm going to invite us to start is remembering that we have bodies, which I know is such a weird thing to say, but it can be very easy to forget that we have a body. So what that's going to look like is we're going to start with what I call the ABCs. And these are really simple, accessible resources to help you get back in your body. And they also happen to help you regulate your nervous system so your brain becomes more integrated. I'm going to stand up to do them. You don't have to. You can stay seated if you like. There's nothing that we're going to do today that you have to do. So if you don't want to do it, totally fine. If you do want to do it, but you want to turn your camera off so you don't feel like you're being watched, that's totally fine too. But I'm going to get up, and you can kind of check in with yourself and see if you want to stand up or if you want to stay seated. I'm going to organize my costume because, you know, once you stand up, you got to put things in the right place again. So again, if you want to have your camera off, you can. If you want to stand, you can. No worries, whatever you want to do. We're going to do ABC. So the first one is A, and it simply is awareness. That's what it stands for. So I'd like you to look around the room that you're in. And don't just look with your eyes, but actually turn your head. Look behind you, Look up. And most likely, this is probably a room you spent a lot of time in recently, so it's familiar, but look like it's new. So looking for colors that you like, for textures. You might even look out the window and see if you can see any trees. Is there a breeze? Are things moving? Is it still? Noticing any sounds that you might be able to hear. And noticing too, as you start to look around and not just at a computer screen, do you become aware of the fact that you're breathing? And if so, are you breathing shallow? Are you breathing deep? Okay. So that's A. Pretty simple. B stands for body. And that means anything that starts to remind you that you have a body. So sometimes I like to start with a little shake, or you could do a tap. Now, these are things that aren't meant to fix anything, or you're not trying to figure out, oh, why is my shoulder feeling this way today? It's more to get sensation. If you go to the tapping on your chest, it's always kind of lovely to do. And you're muted, so nobody's going to hear you. Just me that's going to make weird sounds. If you're tapping, remember that you also have legs. So even if you're sitting, you can lean over and get your legs and get your back body as well. You might notice that you sigh or take a involuntarily deeper breath. You might notice that you get a bit of a yawn. Those are all signs potentially that your parasympathetic nervous system is settling in to help get your nervous system calm. So we've done a little shaking, we've done a little tapping. Let's do just a stretch. Like if you missed your morning stretch. So this isn't yoga, this isn't like anything super buttoned up. This is just, I'm gonna get you all a yawn. Go for what feels pleasant. And if you're having one of those days in your body where like nothing feels pleasant, because there's days like that, go for the thing that feels the least sucky, because sometimes that's where we got to start, right? Okay, so that's B, remembering you have a body. Finally, we'll come to C. C stands for centering. And we're going to do centering with care. So for centering, I'd like you to either really plant your feet on the ground if you're standing, or really feel your sit bones in the chair that's supporting you. And then get longer through your spine, like you could rise up a little bit and invite in a little dignity into your shape. And then bring your hands either both to your chest, both to your belly, or one to each, whatever feels most resonant for you. And bring to mind someone or something or someplace that genuinely makes you smile. And you'll know you found it because you will actually smile. Just that like little quiet smile for yourself. And see if you can hold that person or place or thing or pet in your mind such that that smile is not just something that's on your face, but like see what it feels like in your chest, in your belly, to have that smile. Is it warm? Is it light? Is it heavy? Is it tight? Is it open? And then let's take, let's say 3 breaths together collectively. So a nice deep inhale and let it out with a, and breathing in again. last one, breathing in and exhale. Okay. If your eyes were closed, you can open them up. If you were standing and you'd like to remain standing, feel free to. If you'd like to come back down and have a seat, you can do that. So those are the ABCs. I'll send that to you in a bit of a quick description in a follow-up email. But this is those practices, whether you do one of them or all three of them, super great, super simple, fast way to come back to your body. Anything you noticed or surprised you that you want to write into the chat box, did something shift in your breathing? Did you notice one of those things had an effect or not? Anything you want to share? I'm always curious because it's such a simple thing to do, but it can have a fairly significant ability to shift things. So you came back into the present moment. Mm-hmm. Lovely, thanks. I particularly like the awareness, the A one, just looking around the room, especially in the age of Zoom, where it's like this, and to look at 20 faces, you still don't have to move your head, right? Like that's very odd. And when we're talking about working with our nervous system, a lot of the system that is about social engagement and regulation, a lot of it has to do with the nerves in your face and your neck. So actually just moving your head, that's why I said don't just move your eyes, move your head, look around. Stimulating these muscles and nerves in your neck can help to stimulate the social engagement and connection piece. So really, like at the most basic level, if just every half hour you take your head away from your computer and look around your room, it can really help with regulating your nervous system. Help you notice that you are carrying stress. You shifted your situation, your position, so you're less slouching. Yeah, that last one, noticing that you felt a lot of gratitude. Perfect. And Heidi, that's a really good lead into what we're going to talk about today. You said you felt a lot of gratitude with the last one, and you'll be using it when you're feeling unmotivated. This is kind of exactly what we're here to talk about. So let me talk to you a little bit about why we just did that. And I'm going to share my screen briefly. And this is the bit of neurobiology piece that I want to talk with you about. So we have different types of self-awareness, and two of them are conceptual and embodied self-awareness. So conceptual self-awareness is the thing that we tend to think of when we say that we have a lot of self-awareness, meaning it's how we think about ourselves. Anyone else out there like constantly do the inner monologue about like what's happening in your life? And now I'm walking down the street and now I'm seeing this person and I feel blah, 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 you're right. So it's like you're telling yourself the story of yourself as it just happened, or you're anticipating what's going to happen, thinking about yourself in the meeting this afternoon and how are you going to feel and anticipating what you're going to say. These are all conceptual self-awareness things. Knowing your personal story, knowing the influences, knowing your triggers. This is conceptual self-awareness. It happens in the past and in the future. And it's built upon things like facts and details. It's the narrative that's going on. So that's conceptual self-awareness. Embodied self-awareness, on the other hand, is the self experiencing the self. So that's what we were just doing. It's things like, are your hands cool or warm? Are you in a room that's bright or dark? Are your pants comfortable or are they uncomfortable? Do you have a headache? Are you hungry? Are you sad? Are you happy? So it's based not in thinking and cognition, it's based in sensations and feeling, and it happens only in the present moment. So these are the way that it's primarily different is conceptual self-awareness is about things that have happened in the past and might happen in the future. Embodied self-awareness happens now, which is what someone said, it brought me into the present moment. So things like temperature and pain and pressure and emotion, how you're breathing, all of those things. Now, one of these isn't better than the other. They're both important, and they're both useful. But what is true is that they are neurobiologically different, meaning they light up different pathways in your brain, and they have different effects in your brain. So when it comes to embodied self-awareness, these things over here on the green side of your screen are the benefits of embodied self-awareness that don't necessarily happen with conceptual self-awareness. So it's an increase in all of these things. For some reason, when I have my AirPods in, Siri goes nut bar and always is asking me if I want help. So can you hear me? Okay. Okay. Siri's talking to me in my head. So look at this list. And as you read over it, I don't know about you, but when I even just read that list, I'm like, oh, yeah, I want that. Because I would say that this is the list of a truly phenomenal entrepreneur, right? Like these qualities are things that if you had everything on that list, I think you could be a successful entrepreneur. I also happen to think it's a list of just a truly awesome human being. And the thing that I get so fired up about when it comes to embodiment is these sorts of things, we can't think our way into them, right? We can use our mind to kind of like turn or change channels towards more courage and more confidence, more intuition and all that stuff. But our mind isn't the thing that's responsible for that. It's the integrated self that's responsible for that. So when it comes back to those ABCs that we just practiced and what we're going to talk about when it comes to embodied commitment, this is why we need to call upon our body, because it helps us access these embodied resources, these internal resources. Got it? Okay, so I'm going to stop my share for a moment and come back. So if you get nothing else out of today, I would love it if you walked away with this understanding that you have two different awarenesses. I mean, there's actually more than those two awarenesses, but for today's conversation, that there's this conceptual inner dialogue that's always going. And then there's the right here in this moment, can you feel the chair underneath of you? Right? Can you feel the place where your clothing touches your skin? Can you hear the sounds that are going on in your room? The more that you're able to orient yourself to just those tiny details of your embodied experience, the more likely you are to be tapping in to those resources that ultimately are going to be able to help you fuel the more practical aspects of what you're trying to do. So in terms of this being like a business development course, we're not going to talk about getting more clients or how do you increase your revenue, or like that's not my my expertise, those practical details. Mine is kind of like coming back to the foundation and working with the part of you who knows. Let me say this a different way. All of us ultimately usually know what we need to be doing, and if we don't know, we learn what we need to be doing. But the stuff that we're working on today is working with the part of you who knows you need to be doing it but doesn't do it, right? Because you don't have all those that sense of integration. Any questions? By the way, if you have questions along the way, you can put them in the chat box and I'll keep an eye on them. But is this making sense so far? Yeah. And by making sense, I don't just mean like up here. I mean, like, does it make sense? Like when we talk about it, can you get a feeling between the difference between your thinking self and your experiencing self? Yeah. Like right now, the trash can, the trash guy is going by. So I hear lots of trash truck noise. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like a pleasant orientation to your surroundings. It just has to be something that reminds you, oh yeah, I'm here in this moment. This is my body. Oh, I'm thirsty. I have to pee. The things that somehow we miss because we're up here. Yeah, perfect. There's a lot more self to draw upon. I often say that to the extent that you are only using your mental intelligence, you're leaving a lot of your intelligence on the table. Okay, so let's talk about, what do I want to talk about? Let's come back to the intention piece. And before I go on to tell you more about this embodied commitment that I want to talk about today, I want to give you the opportunity to go into breakout rooms and share what you know about what your intention is. And here's my intention behind asking you to share your intention. One is just to have some social engagement, because as Nikki said, we could probably use it. And this whole breakout room thing, I've done a lot of it in the last year, and everybody like does this. Most people don't like it right before it happens. And then once you get in there, it's like, oh, it's so lovely to talk to a human. So if you're one of the people that's like, I don't know if I want to do it, I'd invite you to give it a try. You don't have to participate. You can go in and just say like, I pass, I'm not going to share, but I'd love to be an open listener. If you don't want to go in, that's totally fine. You're going to get an invitation in a moment. And if you decline the invitation, you'll stay in the main room with me. So my second reason behind asking you to go into breakout rooms, this is me being distracted trying to say your breakout rooms as I'm doing this, is I want you to track your body while you tell someone else about what your intention is. Meaning, pay attention to what it feels like in your body when you talk about intention. This is May. She's come to keep an eye on you while you're talking about your intentions. She looks really mad, but she's very sweet. Track your body. Notice, do you get nervous? Do you get excited? Do you kind of numb out or fog out? Do you get really hard and like, I'm going to do this, you know, sort of thing? Just notice what the tone, like the physical tone, the emotional tone is behind your intention sharing. Okay, so I've got it set to put you in groups of 3 or 4. We're going to go for 5 minutes, which I know isn't very much. It never is enough time, but 5 minutes, share what you know about what your intention is, and watch what it feels like in your body when you do. On board? May says, are you ready? Okay, here we go. Oh man, really? Uh-oh, that didn't work, did it? Hold on. Recreate. Automatically. Let's try that again. Here we go. And whoosh, they all come back in. The magical experience of coming back to a different room without moving. How was that? Was it enough time? Couple. Okay. Did anyone have the experience of you're like right in the most brilliant point you've ever made and then everyone's gone? Yeah. Sorry. 'Tis the way of Zoom. So I would love it if you put into the chat what you noticed about your embodied experience talking about your intention, either the emotional tone or sensations that you noticed. Like, did you get cold? Did you get shaky? Did you get flushed? Did you get doubtful? I'm curious to know when you were paying attention to your body, what you noticed. Excited and hopeful, tingling in your hands and feet and chest. And you can say too, if it's tingling, for example, was it pleasant or was it unpleasant, right? Like, did it have a tone that was pleasant or not? Feels really good in my face and heart to speak your truth and intention. Surprisingly calm, interesting. And it was an unpleasant tingling. I see that, okay. Stressed out, tight chest, nervous energy, gentle and purposeful. Yeah, and you know, it depends on the day, probably. It depends on the people. It depends on, did you have your coffee? It depends on a lot of things. So this isn't like, and this is how it always is, but I want you to start being curious to when you're doing things that, or saying things that are in particular related to your business or related to where you want to go or what you want to do, like just have some curiosity to the embodied self-awareness piece of things, because this is how you're getting some information as to how integrated are you and what kind of information are you getting. Because really, come on, sweetheart, pick your spot. Maybe you've heard this before, but we have, information that goes from our body to our brain and our brain to our body. And 80% of the information that's passing from brain to body goes from your brain to your body. Only 20% goes from your, sorry, did I say that the wrong way? 80% goes from your body to your brain. 20% goes from your brain to your body, which is to say, if you have an intention or a goal and you're trying to get that to send the information, it will, but you're getting more information coming this way. So if you were one of the people who was having nervousness or doubt or a sense of an unpleasant excitement that feels like it was distracting, that information is going to your brain and influencing the behaviors and the actions that you take. For example, if I were to sit like this and tell you, I'm really excited to be here, I love Weave, right? My body is telling my brain that's not really true. If I were to do this and go, I hate doing this, would you believe me? My brain wouldn't believe me either, right? I'm getting a lot of information from here. And so it's this is one of the reasons why we want to be integrated. We get a lot of information from here. And the more we can have some, I don't want to say control over it, but consciousness around it, the more we can bring of ourselves. Let's see, someone says it depends on the intention, if it's very challenging or not. Absolutely. I think it depends on how edgy it is for you, right? Like how close you are to, it's true sometimes when you hear it and you're like, yeah, that's totally true. But you go, ugh! Right? Like that's when you know you're right on the edge. And so the more challenging it is, the more you have to call upon these resources. So let's shift gears into embodied commitment. I'm going to share my screen one more time here to show you this. And I'm going to ask you to write it down, and then we'll come back to being able to see each other's faces. Can you see this? Embodied commitment. Embodied commitment equals intention plus care plus action. And intention is what we've been talking about, and that's the mental piece or your mind. Care is the emotional piece or heart. And action is the physical piece and the part that calls upon your body. So intention plus care plus action. Excuse me. And research in neuroscience tells us that the more of us that is participating, the more integrated we are in mind, body, heart, or mind, body, emotions, the more access we have to those internal resources, and the more likely we are to succeed at that which we are endeavoring to succeed in. I'm going to take this down and people have this, okay? And I'll send this out to people as well, to everyone at the end. And come back to, okay, so embodied commitment, intention plus care plus action. So we've talked about intention. Let's talk about care. Care is the love you feel, or the excitement you feel, or the warmth and the happiness you feel when you think about your intention or your goal coming to be, right? So we can think about it in the sense of, oh my gosh, I don't know if this is going to happen. I don't know if I have what it takes, or who am I to set this intention? But if you shift into, what if this were to actually come to be? What would that allow for you, right? So if your intention has to do with making a certain amount of money, maybe that allows for you to have the feeling of ease every month when you pay your bills, right? Like, holy crap, I know from years and years of my life, the feeling of like a bill coming and being like, I don't know how I'm going to pay that, to the feeling of a bill coming and go, oh, I'm going to just write a check for that. I got that, right? Like that feeling. Or maybe it's that you want to reach more people and you want to see more young people feeling resilient and rocking it in their classrooms and with their friendships. And you get to actually see that, like the feeling that you would have in your body if you saw that. This is the care piece. So one way that I like kind of bringing this into the body, because this one can be kind of hard to get to because it's the most vulnerable aspect of this equation, right? Like actually letting yourself feel the thing that feels positive or pleasant or happy can sometimes be really hard to get to or vulnerable. So what I like to do is rub your hands together. So you create some friction, some tingling, some warmth, so you feel your hands, right? And then hold them so that they're facing one another. You can maybe get a sense of the warmth or the vibration. And if it helps you, you can close your eyes and bring to mind someone or something or someplace that's really easy to love. Like that little nugget of a cat that was just up here. She's the one I always think of because she's so easy to love. Maybe it's your kid or a place in nature, and see if you can get that love to kind of be there in your hands, that sense of warmth, that sense of vibration. And maybe a sigh with that. Good. And then rub them again in case you've started to lose some of that sensation and touch and tingle. And this time, set them so that they're opposing one another again, like you're holding that, and see if you can bring to mind now your intention and it coming to be. Set aside any doubt or nervousness as best you can and just think of what would that feel like if you got there. And you can bring your hands to rest on your body if that feels good. Like bring all that in. And see how well you're able to let that in or let that be here. And it might be difficult, and that's okay. That's why this is a practice. Okay, so go ahead and open your eyes if you had them closed. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I want to add the last piece, and that is the body or the action. Now, this has two parts to it. We're going to talk about the first part now and then the second part in a bit. The first part of the body is picking a gesture or a shape or posture that to you represents the embodiment of your intention, your goal. So for example, if my intention this year was to go more with the flow, right? Like to be less gripped about things and be more at ease, my posture might be, I love this one. I'm gonna put my feet up on the desk and put my hands back, right? Like this gesture of like, I'm gonna just chill out a little bit more. If my intention were something like, I'm not gonna let myself get distracted, I'm gonna stay on task, it might be this. If it's, I'm gonna let myself be more seen and be more on LinkedIn and social media, it might be, you get the point here. Like it's something that feels like a metaphor for you, whether it's an actual movement or whether it's a shape. So I want you to think about, what is that shape or gesture or hand, it might just be holding your hands open, or holding your hands out like you're moving through. Do you have something in mind? Mm-hmm. Okay. If you have something in mind, do you know the work of Amy Cuddy? Has anyone heard of Amy Cuddy? Check out her TED Talk, Cuddy, Cuddy. She talks about the power pose. Power pose, her research is that if you pick a pose that for you feels powerful and you stand in it for 2 minutes a day, it changes your neurobiology. It lowers your cortisol, which is the stress hormone. It ups your, oh crap, I just totally blanked on the name. Testosterone, which has to do with feelings of empowerment and agency. It ups your feel-good drugs in your body. And so the idea being, if you just take your body and for 2 minutes a day, stand in the shape that makes you feel good and powerful, it will help rewire your brain to be more positive. So we're pulling that with intention, with care, and we're putting them together. So you can turn your camera off if you want, or you can keep it on, but I would like for you to take the shape or take the gesture that you're working with. So for me, mine's like this, hands open. Yours might be Superwoman pose. It might be something as simple as just standing and knowing that you're standing right in the very center. I don't care what it is, as long as it makes sense for you. So taking your shape, see if you can call upon the feeling of care. So you're gonna what's the word I'm looking for again? Like infuse this shape with, this is what it would feel like emotionally and energetically if my intention came to be. And maybe with that. Knowing you're muted, I'd like for you to be in your shape, whatever that shape is. Feel your care for the intention coming to be, and speak your intention out loud. And maybe say it out loud for this first time, this practice, 2 or 3 times, until you believe yourself saying it. Okay. And then if you were standing, when you feel complete, you can come back down. So this is one of those things, when you first do it, sometimes it's like, wow, that felt incredible. I love that. And sometimes it can feel like, that was weird. I'm not entirely sure what I just did. Hold on. Okay. I see, Jessica, you've got to pop off. Nice to have you here. So look, if it feels awkward, that makes sense, especially if it's something you've not done before. I would encourage you to play with it on your own. Find something that feels the right size for you. You know what I mean? Like the thing that feels like it's just the right approach for you, and try practicing it. Because here's the second part of the action. So the first part of action is pick your gesture, shape, and stand in it. The second part is actually take actions, right? We can't just meditate or think or embody our way into behaving differently. We have to behave differently and act differently. So I'm going to encourage you to think of, like, what is the very next step, small step that you need to do by the end of this week to get you towards your intention. And that might be, making a phone call, sending an email, putting up a post, hiring the bookkeeper, signing up for the course, on QuickBooks, which I think is my action. I was like, of course on QuickBooks, yes, please. So what's your one little action that's specific to your business that you're going to do? Perfect. You will find your power pose by the end of the week. That counts. And here's what I'm going to say too. I'm going to populate one of the things on your list if you haven't already put that on there. You're going to practice your embodied commitment for 2 minutes a day. Either right before you sit down for, here we go, this is the beginning of the day, or I particularly like doing it right before I have like a major thing. Like pick your hardest client of the day or your hardest phone call, or right before you push send on the email, and do it then, right? So that's one of your things to put on your to-do list. Thank you, Nikki. Nikki just put in the chat box Amy Cuddy's talk on your body language and your shape. It's super cool. And now there's people who say the science isn't as robust as it should be. And there's always people who say that. But I've found, this TED Talk is years and years old. I've found lots of science that does support it. And personally, in my own experience, it's been really helpful. Like back in the day where we used to do things in person, I had my power pose. And before I was going to speak to, say, a room full of 100 people, I would go into the bathroom and I would stand in the stall in my power pose. Nobody knows I'm in there doing that. And I would just like find that power in my body again, that sense of confidence, and then go in and do it. So I found it to be really, really helpful. Oh, Esther, you've seen it. Yeah, it's so good. It's such worth a watch. Okay, so back to your action items. I want to add to that before we get off the call with each other today, because we have another 15 minutes or so, and then I'll open it up more to questions. But I want to give you some time to consider two things. One is where you might get tripped up with all of this, right? Because right now it might feel like, oh, this is good, I can do this, and there's some momentum here. But inevitably, whether it's later today or tomorrow, next week or next month, something will trip you up around your intention, whether it's an internal thought, whether it's an external kind of roadblock or resistance. I want you to think about where might you get tripped up, and what is going to be your plan for that. And the plan can be, in part, maybe drawing upon your ABCs, right? Coming back to remembering, oh, I need to call back more of myself, more integration when the sort of thing happens. It also might be where, what kind of support will I need to ask for, right? So where might you get tripped up? What's the plan? And as part of that plan, is there someone or some place you can go to for support? I'm trying to think how I want to do this next part. Because I'm in part wanting to know if some of the support is like, how can we support each other? And like strong woman, strong coffee sounds like that might be a great place for ongoing. So let's see here. Let me take a vote. How many people would love another like 4 or 5 minutes in a small group to talk about where you might get tripped up and how you might support each other? Or that's one version. Or how many want to do it here in this room? Because now we're kind of, I think we're low enough in numbers. We could probably just open up here in this room. Talk. Yeah. Nikki, would you mind unmuting everybody? Because for some reason I was having serious issues driving the bus when I couldn't unmute people earlier.
See, I just saw you put your hand up.
So yeah. I think that for me would be to find the right time in the day. Like I like picture myself doing it in the morning so that I can set my intentions for the day. But then a lot of the time, like I'm in a rush, getting ready to go to work, and just getting things. So that's like that would be my main thing that would like prevent me from getting this done.
Yeah, I so relate to that. So Jay, I don't know if you're back and you can hear us. We Nancy commented on just finding almost the right time of day and to be able to practice this so that it's anchored.
Yeah, absolutely. And knowing that we have different types of like if we're going by the energy of our body and nervous system, there are times of day where we can meet ourselves very easily in the energy that's already there, or times of day where we need to call ourselves up. Does that make sense? I know for me, practices in the morning are really easy to do, but by 3 in the afternoon, I've forgotten it. So I should probably actually practice it both.
Okay.
The thing with practices, and I love this, I got this from Dave Mokel, who's also a local around here. Some of you maybe know him. He said the two best times to practice is when you need it and when you don't need it.
Thank you.
Anyone else about where might you get tripped up and or what kind of support you want? Irene, yeah.
Yeah, I think a big thing for me is trying to take on too much. And so trying to make things into like little bite-sized pieces, but noticing when the feeling of overwhelm comes up. And I think a big part for me is to go outside, and I do a lot of work around nature connection. And so asking the trees or the plants or whatever kind of being that I can connect with for support and kind of a help regrounding. And sometimes that's like touching a tree or like feeling the texture of a leaf. And so getting out of my head and literally out of the inside space and just going outside. And so working with trying to catch myself before I've entered too far into the overwhelm, or to like also even that space of being really unproductive where somehow I've gone away from the task and I'm like, somehow looking at social media or doing something and just like stopping and going outside.
Yeah. So your plan for overwhelm is get outside, touch something, ground yourself. So my question is, how do you know when the overwhelm is starting?
I think part of it is noticing when I'm like kind of either in my body feeling like frustration, irritability, kind of tense tightness. So it's like getting more aware of my body, and then also noticing when I'm just wandering away from, it's either like I'm avoiding or I'm like pushing too hard. So like, where's the place that's not kind of the sweet spot for working?
Right. And I love that you mentioned nature too. I saw a couple other people nodding because the ABCs and the practices for embodiment, I find, and many people have reported, they're so much easier in nature. In nature just kind of does half the work for you because there's movement, there's sounds, there's smells, there's nature, there's a sense of like, oh, there's a whole thing out here that's just kind of doing its thing without me needing to do anything. So nature is a big part of accessing that embodied self-awareness for sure. Thanks, Irene.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to share?
Jay, what are your thoughts on like setting reminders on phones and setting alarms to kind of remember to practice? Is that acceptable?
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of setting alarms on my phone, and I tell clients to do it all the time, to so that it goes off every couple hours, just as a reminder to get up and do your shaking or look around. Or I also like layering practices. So layering practices is let's assume that we all brush our teeth. Well, I don't know, in pandemic time, maybe once a day, I don't know. But like the things that you do every day, at least once a day, whether it's brush your teeth, or if you're the person who can't start your day without coffee, or like the things that you know, I'm gonna do this, layer your embodied commitment practice with that. So when you start the coffee maker, you can tell I don't drink coffee. I'm like, I don't understand how to talk about coffee. When you're making your coffee in the morning, do your practice then. When you're brushing your teeth, do your practice then. So things that you don't have to remind yourself for. Back in the day when we used to drive more often, when you sit at a red light, like make it a time where you feel your butt in the chair, feel the steering wheel underneath your hands, smell what you can smell. Like, so picking things that are part of life, I also really like doing that. And then the final thing I'll say is, if you're someone who likes to leave yourself notes, like on your computer or on the wall next to your desk, that's fine. Just change it every 3 or 4 days. So change the color of it, change where it is, change it to a string instead of a piece of paper, because your brain will stop seeing it after a few days and it becomes totally useless. People are nodding. You're like, yep, been there. Put my big intention up, never looked at it again. Yeah. Good question, Nikki.
Can I say something?
Please.
When Nikki mentions reminders, I over focus. I'm a little bit ADD, so sometimes when I do a task, I'm so focused in that I forget everything else around me. And so I constantly have phone reminders. Remember, you have an appointment in a day, in an hour, in 30 minutes, or whatever. And I have so many of those that I hear them and I don't even look. And so I got to the point where my reminders are completely useless. Same with little tags. I mean, behind me, this is not my tags, but I'll put post-it notes on the wall. And sure enough, after a day or two, I don't even see them anymore. So I love the idea of doing it when you do a task. And then I was thinking I would do it with a task that I love, which is having my first cup of tea in the morning, because it's a pleasurable moment. So then you associate it with a pleasurable moment. And I think I'm much more likely to do this and to remember.
Oh, I love that. I love that, and especially layering it with the pleasurable moments. So you're already kind of sinking into a place where you're in your body and you're feeling pleasant. Great idea. Yeah, the task thing, I would say it's always a good rule of thumb to break your own rules, which is to say, if you're the person who always sets the reminders on your phone, don't set a reminder on your phone, right? If you're the person who never sets a reminder on your phone, set a reminder on your phone. Like, do the thing that is most unfamiliar, because it's novel. Our brains like novel. Great. I love these questions. We can just kind of continue right in, because I don't have any other things that I want to share other than a couple links at the end for people to go and continue on. So more questions or comments that anyone has.
So for me, I tend to struggle with being overly perfectionistic. Like, we get these ideas and we want to do talk about a particular subject or move forward in a particular area, and I tend to like to do research to look at other people's perspectives and make sure that the topic that I'm speaking about is on point and considering all areas. And so that can, you can kind of get lost in that and become overly perfectionistic. And I like your idea of focusing on your intention and then really the care part, which is the heart. So when I go through that kind of roller coaster struggle, it always ends up I always end up at the end going back to my original intent of what was in my heart and what message was I trying to get out there, and focusing on that.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, the space of perfectionism, is anyone else familiar with that one? And here's the thing, when you were just talking about it, Tiffany, like I could feel my throat tightening, and I could feel like when I get into that place, like I feel like not that I've ever seen one in real life, but a trash compactor, how the walls start coming in. That's what I feel like when I get in that space of everything has to be on point. I have to know all the right answers. I have to get them, you know, it just, things speed up and then it gets smaller. And so, yeah, I would just encourage you, like what you were just speaking to, Tiffany, all of us, encourage, really track your body when you're doing different aspects of your business. There are things that will speed you up or shut you down or tighten you or make you go foggy, you know, because all of us in our dysregulation do different things. We get ramped up, or we get more agitated, or we get short-tempered, or we just get sluggish. We can't find the word, whatever it is. Really start tracking yourself on an embodied level. You get so much information from there. And you know, for example, I work with couples sometimes. This is not business work at all, but I work with couples, and I often ask them to just say, like, which part of you is speaking to your partner right now? And what part of your partner is speaking to you? Like, can you feel the tightness of the perfectionist? And so I would say the same to you in your business, is like, be curious to what your body feels like, so you know what part of you is putting the email out there, you know, and can you interrupt yourself to come back, at least in body, to more openness? Because here's the thing, I forgot to mention this earlier. All this embodiment work, and like Amy Cuddy's work around power poses and embodying different ways of being, a lot of times people conceptualize this as fake it till you make it, right? Like, oh, I'm feeling doubtful, so I'm going to put on a confident pose and feel more confident. I don't like to think of it as faking it till you make it. I like to think of it as practice it until you embody it. Practice it until you embody it. It's different. One is I'm going to fake it till I make it. I'm going to just think my way into this. I'm going to tell myself. It's like the affirmations. There's nothing wrong with affirmations, except for the fact that if they aren't integrated, they're not going to take you anywhere. So embody it, pardon me, practice it until you embody it, is like, bring it from up here down into here, where you can actually feel the energy of it and what it does to your shape, right? Like some people said they automatically noticed they sat taller when we started thinking about your care for your intention, that sort of thing. So really track yourself on this embodied level, because that's where you have, one, a lot of information, but also a lot of agency, a lot of capacity to infuse what you're doing with what you actually want to infuse with.
I think what you just said about the embodiment part, I think it's really important to go back to being authentic. You know, like you were saying, fake it till you make it. And I've been questioning that whole thing that's out there all the time, you know, fake it till you make it. And really questioning, you know, I guess coming to the conclusion that I don't think that's a healthy approach personally, like you were saying. That I really loved what you said about, you know, practice it until you embody it. I think, especially as women, we spend so much time trying to be what everybody else wants us to be, and we forget to kind of come back and center and focus on um, who are we and what is our authentic self, and you know, does that feel good putting that on, and trusting that that's who we are, and that, you know, not everybody's going to like us, and not everybody's going to like our message, and not everybody's going to have an appeal to what we say. And so what you just said about that, the embodiment, I think is just so important. I think that's why, when I started this site, I gave the women's voices leading. I gave a lot of thought to, am I a consultant? Am I an advocate? Am I what am I? And I arrived at a place of just saying I'm a storyteller. I'm sharing my own authentic stories and experiences, having worked in government, in human resources, seeing the horror stories, seeing the inequality. And I'm simply authentic because I'm being true to myself and telling my stories, names changed to protect the innocent, but basically, these are important things to get out there. And so I just think we need to focus on stop being all things to all people and just being more authentic.
Amen. Amen. And here's the thing with the embodied self-awareness. To be authentic is friggin' hard, right? Or else we would do it more often. It's hard because it's vulnerable. It's hard because it's not perfect. It's hard because to be authentic sometimes means saying, I'm really excited to be here and I'm terrified, right? It's all those things. And what I love about the embodied self-awareness piece is being in your body, I think is almost, I don't know if I could say this, but I would say being authentic requires being in your body. It requires being that integrated self. And being in our bodies for many of us, especially women, is not a comfortable place to be, right? We've been told our body should look a certain way. So being in it, if it doesn't look that way, doesn't feel great, or, we have chronic pain, or all the different things that go along with being in a body. But I would encourage you to go back and look at the list of things that are on the embodied self-awareness resources, because if you can get into your body, what you find there is greater access to compassion, right? Greater access to being able to connect with others, greater access to your decision making, greater access to your capacity to see and understand another person. Like all the things that would make it easier to be authentic actually arise by being in your body. And that was a long-winded way of trying to get around to saying, like, I love that about the embodiment work, is like, if you can trick your mind enough into just getting here, the things that you need to stay here are there, right? The things that you need to be more authentic are here. And even if your voice shakes, it's okay, right? It's like people can feel you. And I think that's, whether we're talking about business or we're talking about relationships or talking about being a human being, I think the thing that we want most, or one of the things we want most, is we want to be felt, right? You want to feel me when I'm talking to you, even as a freaking head on a screen. Like, you want to know that I'm here. And that comes through being embodied, not through being perfect. Okay, I'm off my soapbox for now. Esther.
Yeah, so I have been thinking a lot about embodiment and intentionality and self-awareness, and I'm wondering what you would say to the question of how responsible are we to remake ourselves, and how responsible are other people for meeting us in some happy place with that? I don't know if my question makes total sense or not, but because I feel like we can do so much work on ourselves, but if we're not re-educating the people that we come into contact with on this new us, like, are we not maximizing the benefit of doing work on ourselves?
Oh, that's a good question. And it seems to me that your question has something specific behind it. You know what I mean? Like, I could answer in a broad concept, but
Sure. Yeah, I guess I could say more. I think that there is the perception of, well, there's how we are, our nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's the perception of ourselves to our own nature, and then there's how other people see us.
Mm-hmm.
And so if other people are seeing us in a way that doesn't match our own perception, what can we do about that?
Oh, okay.
Maybe it's too philosophical. If it is,
No, it's not too philosophical. I think it depends. And here are some answers that I come up with. That is, one thing is we can grieve that people aren't seeing us that way. Sometimes that's the thing to do. It's not to actually change them or try to educate them. It's to say, ouch, that hurts that they don't see me that way because I am that way.
Mhm.
And in fact, I think the older I get, the more I think that's the first answer, as opposed to the answer of educating or changing the way someone sees me. Because I've tried that enough times to know it's not all that, it doesn't necessarily work. But I would say in terms of like when I work with people one-on-one around this embodiment work and psychoeducation, that is a big piece about what we work on. And it's kind of two-pronged. One is, how do you hold yourself, right? So that it's more likely the other person will see you that way. And that you don't, as soon as you've sensed them not seeing you that way, you don't give it away, as it were, right? Like you don't kind of slip back. And the other prong is language. I'm a real believer in the power of learning the language of being a differentiated person. And by differentiated, I mean like individuated, like you know how to stand in yourself. You don't have to defend yourself, but nor do you have to hide yourself. To just be who you are, I believe has a whole language to it that we don't learn in our culture. There's this great therapist named Terry Real, and I really like his work. And he talks about being an individuated adult is like immigrating to your own country. And in your own country, you have your own customs, and you have your own food, and you have your own language. And it isn't the language, and it isn't the food, and it isn't the customs of the country you grew up in. And when you start speaking that language, that's the other piece, I think, is people experience you differently when you can speak as if you knew you mattered. And I think that conveys a different way. And then if that person doesn't see you, it's like, ouch. It sucks for them. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, does that help? Or is that too philosophical? Okay. Yeah. If you are being truly who you are, how can anyone see this change if you have truly done the work? Oh, yeah. How can anyone not see this change? You're right. Yeah. And if they can't, it's on them, not on you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speak as if you knew you mattered. Kablooey. There's a great book about that. Hold on. Look, my mom's not here. I can stand on my chair and I won't get in trouble. This book, I love this book. This is not necessarily business related. This is relationship related. Talk to me like I'm someone you love. And it's by Nancy Dreyfus, who happens to be my therapist. And she's the best therapist in the whole world. And why I love this book is oops, that doesn't show it. It's one saying per page and then like a little story about why you might use it. And this is where I began to learn the language of speaking as if I mattered. And like I said, this one is very much specific to relationship repair, but I give this as an assignment to my clients all the time to read this book from the level of your body and see what it feels like in your body to say these sorts of things. Because I remember the first time I read it, I was like, oh, yeah, like that's pretty much the only thing I could just say. And I would have never in a million years thought to say that. Yeah. For example, I'll just give you an example of the one I opened to. This is like in a repair situation. Your behavior embarrassed me, and I'm trying to tell you not to make you feel bad, but so I can feel close to you again. Basic. True. Not what I would have ever said, you know? And anytime I've used these things with my partner, he'll usually be like, oh, well, if you had said it that way in the first place, I could have totally heard you. And I'm like, exactly. So I highly recommend that book as a place to start with, if I could speak as if I mattered. Yes, Missy, I agree with you. People will also see you based on who they are and where they are in their awareness and their development. If you've exceeded their development, they won't see you. Need to wrap it up. Okay. Let me put into the chat box. I think I have it here. These are 2 different links. The first link is to subscription to my newsletter if you want to stay in touch. And in that, you will also, once you subscribe, you'd also get a free video on how to set and maintain healthy embodied boundaries. Part of what we're talking about here. And then the second piece is the link to the LinkedIn learning class that Nikki had mentioned at the very beginning, on how to manage your emotions at work. And it's complementary to what we've been doing here in the sense that it's also comes from an embodied perspective of how you manage emotions and work with your, like bring yourself back from freak out, essentially. Okay, that's all I have to say. Nikki, do you want to?
Yes, I mean, and I said time to wrap up with, like, I could stay here all day and listen to you speak.
I know, it's so fun.
And be in conversation with everybody. You know, this is the part of business that that doesn't get talked about so much, and I think it's the part of business that women can really begin to amplify. It's the human side, it's the relationship side, it's the embodied side, and I think it's really powerful, and I think it's going to help us all become, you know, even more successful than we already are in our work and in our lives and professions. So thank you, Jay, for being here with us this morning, and thank all of you for taking the time, the 90 precious minutes out of your day. I really hope you found it useful.
Thank you.
See you on the next one. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for your awesome questions and comments. And I will see you in other Weave things, I'm sure, this year. Thank you again, Nikki and Weave. And till next time.
Absolutely. And I'll send out the recording later today or tomorrow. So thanks, everybody.
With the slides and
yes.
So we'll remind you all the things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.